welcome to a brand new live episode here of the
Geek Buddies! Hey!
Thank you to everyone who's joining us live here as we have essentially breakfast on our side of the country with the Geek Buddies. Some of you on the in the Midwest and some of you in the East Coast are having lunch with the Geek Buddies. So thank you very much for joining us. And I'm not going to do time zones all over the world.
Keep going. Some of you may be having tea. Some of you may be having that late afternoon snack. Maybe you're getting ready to go to bed with the Geek Buddies. Hey, let's do it all.
Or you're coming back from the bar, right? Because 8 hours late. Oh, no, I guess maybe it's 8 hours. What would it be right now? 6? Yeah, maybe you're having dinner with the Geek Buddies in Europe somewhere. But either way, we are here.
A lot of meals.
Huh?
A lot of meals.
A lot of meals. We're here to hang out and have some fun talking about everything going on in the world of geekery. We're going to get in some news here about the Top Gun 3. That's why I'm wearing my shirt. Star Trek prequel possibly happening. We're going to get into some conversations here about Supergirl casting, about Ultimate Comics, about with a big Star Wars news. And we're going to jump into our main topic. And our main topic is going to be our spoiler review of all 5 episodes of Echo, general overall spoiler review of the show itself. So strap in for that. But let's introduce ourselves first. For any of you who may have stumbled upon us who are new to us, I am the Outlaw John Rocha, writer, producer, and host here on the Geek Buddies.
I am the in-law Michael Vogel, writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies.
And I have no legal connection to either of these gentlemen. It's all by choice. My name's Shannon McClung. I'm a television actor and an animation writer, where you can see some of our current work every weekend on YouTube with Strawberry Shortcake, Barry in the Big City, Season 3.
Is there something big happening in the world of Barryland? I see people retweeting or tagging you guys and stuff. What's going on in the world of Barryland here in Strawberry Shortcake? Anything new to announce or to highlight?
They just tagged me because I'm cute.
Oh, okay.
No, not at the moment. I mean, look, we've had the 2 big specials that are still available on Netflix, as well as season 1 and 2 of the shorts. But you can watch Strawberry Shortcake and the Beast of Berry Bog. You can watch Strawberry Shortcake's Perfect Holiday. And later this year, we're going to have Strawberry Shortcake's TBD Spring Special and Strawberry Shortcake's TBD Summer Special.
Nice.
And you can watch both of them and see how many movie references from movies that I love I managed to squeeze into both of them.
There you go. We do know you love movies. And gentlemen, people who are watching us right now, please remember, Streamlabs Super Chats are open. You got questions to ask us here as we're wrapping up the week in geekery. Let us know. We'll answer them as we go along through the show here. Do you have any questions as you're going into your weekend of geekness? Let us know. We will answer them here as we go along. It is pinned in the chat and in the description of this video as well for you all to click on that for the Streamlabs situation. So, all right, well, let's get it going here. The way the show works is each of us brings up some geek news items. We talk about it amongst ourselves, take mini breaks in between, and then get into our main topic, which will be that Echo spoiler review, as I said a few minutes ago. But let's jump into it. This is called the Paramount Block. Let's get into it. Top Gun 3 is apparently happening. Dun, 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 dun. Where's my damn? Yeah, suck it. That's right. The rumor is that Top Gun 3 is happening, and Tom Cruise may be headed back to the danger zone. Now, I know the news earlier this week is that he inked a non-exclusive pact at Warner Brothers, but reports are coming in from a number of sources here that Top Gun 3 is in development at Paramount. Top Gun Maverick co-writer Ethan Kruger is apparently writing a draft. The project would reunite Cruise with Miles Teller and Glen Powell from the first film, and they're in negotiations and conversations with Joseph Kosinski to come back and direct the movie as well. Of course, Tom is currently shooting Mission Impossible 8. Apparently, that is not Dead Reckoning Part 2. Apparently, Part 2 is going to go off into the wind. And also, as I said, the idea that Universal here has an agreement with Tom Cruise, but they don't have what Warner Brothers seems to have locked down here, which is a first look deal giving Tom Cruise offices on the lot. So this is an interesting timing situation going on here with Top Gun 3. I love Top Gun Maverick. I love the original Top Gun film. I'm a little bit nervous. I tweeted this out last night. I'm 98% excited, 2% scared, or 2% excited, 98% scared, like Owen Wilson and Armageddon. Gentlemen, what are your thoughts when you hear this news?
You know what? It took them a long time. Like a Top Gun sequel had been in development for decades, literally.
30 years. Yeah.
I mean, so and the story that they did arrive on, that they were able to go back to the Top Gun school and have the majority of the action take place there, it really worked, as evidenced by the box office receipts. What the third film could be, I don't know. I mean, I do really like Miles Teller's Rooster character. I thought he and Tom Cruise had a really nice dynamic, but I am curious, like, is this going to be another school set story? Is this going to be Maverick and Rooster and what's Glen Powell's character's name? Hangman. Right, is that going to be them going off on another kind of secret mission? I'm not sure. You know, the team that put the sequel together, you know, like, they did a really good job. So ostensibly, the same team being in charge should give us confidence. But I'm with you, John. I'm like, I don't know. You know, Top Gun is one of those. Top Gun Maverick is one of those rare legacy sequels to come along and be just as good as the first one.
Yeah.
Will they be able to do that for a third time? I'm not sure, but cautious optimism.
That's my scary feeling here, Mike. I mean, the film made 1.49, so essentially $1.5 billion. It absolutely revitalized Tom Cruise as an actor. People saw, once again, that Tom Cruise could act. It is an Oscar-winning film. It won an Oscar for Best Sound, was nominated for Best Picture. But it took so many different factors to come together here, Mike, for this film to be the incredible film that it was. Kind of like Barbenheimer. Maybe if we released Barbenheimer at different times, it doesn't quite have the explosion that it had for us. So do you think they'll be able to repeat or replicate what happened here? Because it took 36 years just to get Top Gun Maverick done and have the explosion that happened and a number of COVID delays. Do you think the possibility of Top Gun 3 here to maybe replicate that is in play?
Look, a 36-year-old sequel with an aging movie star that was delayed multiple times, that is a sequel to a movie that, while we all love, is not the most nuanced story, should not have been what Top Gun Maverick was.
Yeah, agreed.
And I don't mean just like looking at the box office. I mean me sitting in the theater screaming like I was a 10-year-old because I was so excited watching that movie. Like, that movie defies every piece of logic of like what, like, it shouldn't have worked.
Yeah.
So you're both not wrong. Like, they announced Top Gun 3 and I'm like, well, Tom Cruise getting even older. It's not Dorian Gray in this shit. Like, he's going older and older.
Yeah.
It should a third Top Gun movie work with an aging Tom Cruise? No.
Yeah.
Am I going to bet against that movie? No. Like, Tom Cruise defies all logic at this point.
Yes.
Like, Tom Cruise is getting to the point now. Like, there was a period of time where we all knew Tom Cruise was getting older, but then you would watch the movie and he still looked like regular old Tom Cruise. He's now getting to the point where no matter what they do, he looks like older Tom Cruise. Like, he's getting older.
The leathering is happening. You're absolutely right.
The leathering is happening.
You can see it. Yeah.
But it doesn't seem to matter.
Right.
Like, that man makes a movie and we're all going, like, he might be the last movie star.
100%.
We have tons of amazing actors. We have amazing performers, but he might be the last movie star. So I think Warner Brothers was wise to lock him up in a non-exclusive deal and give him offices on the lot. I think Paramount is wise to let him do a Top Gun 3. Like, at this point, let the man do what he wants to do.
But since we're going live and we have a little bit more time to chat, I mean, I think at the end of summer 2022, I would have absolutely agreed that Tom Cruise is kind of the last movie star. But then you flash forward to summer 2023, where Mission Impossible, to me, the best entry in that franchise, really underperformed.
Dead Reckoning Part 1.
Dead Reckoning Part 1.
Yeah.
And it really, really underperformed. And it was like, okay, so what was it that made Top Gun Maverick so special? I mean, was it the combination of the Top Gun name with Tom Cruise? Because, you know, the Mission Impossible movies have only gotten better and better. And like, what was it with Dead Reckoning Part 1? I mean, and you can throw a lot of blame at Barbenheimer, but I don't think you can throw it all. Like, what happened?
Well, go ahead, Mike. What were you gonna say?
Look, we've talked a ton about this. Like we joked about it forever. Like I do agree with you that Dead Reckoning Part 1 was great.
Yeah,
loved
I
it.
like it too.
But even though it kind of stands on its own as just a really great fun movie, and Haley Atwell's a new character and everything, I think there is a sense that 8 movies in, if I don't know what happened in these Mission Impossible movies, I can't really jump on board. Like, I do think Mission Impossible, like, we all know that we're all going to go see Tom Cruise jump off a cliff. In the next movie, Tom Cruise is going to dive with James Cameron to the bottom of the ocean. Like, whatever Tom Cruise is going to do, they're going to promote it, and Tom Cruise is going to do some crazy stunt. Yeah. But I think that there's still the weight of, I don't really know what happened in these movies. I'm a little bit lost. I don't really know. So I think that kind of pulled people from going to see it, whereas Top Gun is very straightforward.
Yeah.
Even the third movie, like, what do you really need to know? It's Maverick.
Yeah.
It's Maverick. He's going to fly a plane. They're going to play the music. Yeah. That's all I need to know.
It's a fair point. And the thing is, when you look at it with Top Gun 3, I think, well, with Top Gun Maverick, rather, it, at a time when we're so fractured in many ways across multiple spectrums of our life and our world, here came a film that worked for all the quadrants. It really worked. There were red staters who loved it, blue staters who loved it, purple staters who loved it, for lack of a better term, keeping it domestic. They all loved it. And that's why the movie made as much money as it made. It was something, and each one could claim elements of the movie as supporting their agenda, right? But beyond that, it's just a really well-made film. And it spoke to a lot of aging filmgoers who were getting older, who were sensing that, you know, being reflective. So there was a lot within the story that really worked. And you brought in these young talents like Glen Powell, like
Miles Teller,
right? Yeah, Monica Barbar. You bring in all these people here to attach to the younger elements and younger fans who are getting into their movies. And so you just made a smart combination of things. And for those of us who loved it from the 80s, as aging 80s lovers, we got to go back one more time into the danger zone. It was a blast. So the third one, I wonder if Tom is going to take a little bit of a step back and have Miles Teller and Glen Powell be much more the focus.
No.
Or does Maverick get into a situation and Hangman and Rooster have to come and save him? Like, there's questions here about what the story would be, because he seems to have earned his stripes to be a teacher at Top Gun, even though he flamed out the first time. So I think that's a possibility. Maybe take John Hamm's spot, what have you. The second element with Mission Impossible, I think Mike does make an excellent point. There's certainly, you can make a case for that. I also think you can't discount the Barbenheimer thing. It was a goddamn buzzsaw. It really was. And Tom missing out on the IMAX screens, I think, affected it. Also, the film didn't get the greatest reviews. It got good reviews. It didn't get the greatest reviews like the previous installment. So people, I think, were a little hesitant. But you have to also wonder, like, Oppenheimer, to a degree, benefited from Barbie because Barbie screenings were sold out. Let's go see Oppenheimer, right? Well, how come they didn't go, let's go see Top Gun? Oh, sorry, let's go see a Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, which had only come out 2 weeks before. So there are questions to be asked about what made that different from something like Top Gun Maverick. But I think at the end of the day, Michael nails it. Top Gun is a much more simpler story to sell than Mission Impossible. And maybe that's what, at the end of the day, got people into the theater more than Mission Impossible. So yeah.
Also, I would like to point out to Clarissa's comment here. She just wrote planes. Like, there you go.
Even simpler, Clarissa. Even simpler for sure.
I do think the one thing that we can all agree is absolutely true about Top Gun 3 is that Tom Cruise will not take a step back.
He's not a Pedro Pascal, is what you're saying.
Tom Cruise is never going to take a step back. He's just going to keep going, and then he's going to do an epic stunt into his casket.
True.
The casket will go down. Yeah. That'll be it.
Yeah.
Do you think if he ever did an action film centered around like an NFL or an NBA mascot that he would demand to be in the suit?
Oh,
yes.
With the thing off, so that you can see his face. Obviously, that was the Iron Man thing. Well, so we'll see what happens. Of course, this is early stages. There's a lot going on here between Warner Brothers and Paramount and Skydance and purchasing elements of certain sections attached, certain companies attached to Paramount. So there's a lot of moving pieces like National Amusements, all of this that is tied up in all of this. So I think Tom made a wise move to get himself an office at Warner Brothers. I think he read the writing on the wall at Paramount. And it's ironic that a few years ago, Paramount was quite willing to cut ties with Tom Cruise after he jumped on a couch. Now, here's Tom Cruise in a much more better position. And I hope that's a lesson for y'all in life. Life is not a fucking sprint. It's a marathon. Sometimes you're down, sometimes you're up. You got to hope you end up by the time you leave this planet. So.
Sometimes you're jumping on a couch.
Sometimes you're jumping on a couch for love. Let's move on to another element of Paramount here in this Paramount block, and that is a Star Trek prequel, another franchise that I thoroughly love. According to Deadline, a new Star Trek film is in works at Paramount with Andor's Toby Haynes on board to direct. For those who may not know which episode Toby directed in Andor, he directed the prison escape sequence, which is a fucking great episode in Andor season 1. And Seth Grahame-Smith is penning the script. Seth Grahame is known for writing the novels Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, and wrote and produced the Lego Batman movie, which I think all three of us do thoroughly enjoy. The plot details are under wraps here, but it will be an expansion of the Star Trek universe. There is still a fourth installment with Chris Pine and his crew that is apparently still somewhere in the ether there that is going to be created down the road. But Michael, what are your thoughts on this? A Paramount Star Trek Paramount prequel film that predates what we got here with Chris Pine and his crew, or maybe even Shatner and his crew. And we've already seen Strange New Worlds. So where are we going with this prequel situation? What are your thoughts on this?
That is a very good question. I love Star Trek. I love pretty much everything that's happening right now on Paramount Plus with Star Trek in TV.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Lower Decks. I love Discovery. We've talked at length about how great Strange New Worlds was. Picard season 3 is like one of the all-time great Star Trek stories. Like, I'm loving Star Trek right now.
Yeah.
This news, okay, didn't get me. Like I think to that point, Strange New Worlds is a great Star Trek prequel. Yeah. Now, are they going to jump back way further? Because once you do, it's like, look, the Star Trek universe is cool, but it's really the characters that we love. And every character, when you get a few years before or after, has been spoken for. So I think with the movies, they have a really strong cast with Zachary Quinto and Chris Pine and everybody that they have in that cat. Zoe Saldana. I just, like, what are they doing? Like, Star Trek movies, it just seems like Paramount can't figure it out, and I want them to come out strong. I want them to come out guns blazing with we've got these 3 movies, we're doing this thing, like, we're giving you everything you've got on TV, but with the movie budgets. And this movie, this announcement just has me kind of like, okay.
Yeah. Shannon, this is supposed to be set decades before 2009 Star Trek. So is this like mirroring what we're getting from Mangold with the origin of the Jedi? Is this the origin of the Federation? Isn't that what Scott Bakula's show was, Enterprise, like the first Enterprise? So I'm confused where they're going with this. What are your thoughts?
You know, I mean, on its surface, again, me not being a huge Star Trek guy, I'm kind of like, okay, yeah, if it looks good, it's something I would go see. The thing that I've enjoyed, the one entry into the Star Trek franchise that I've enjoyed the most was J.J. Abrams' first movie in 2009. And maybe it's because they went back a little bit. I mean, I did have a familiarity with the characters. I knew who everyone was. Sure. But if they have a solid story, I mean, maybe that would be sort of, cool ground to cover, is when Starfleet first started. And along with directing those 2 fantastic episodes of Andor, Toby Haynes has kind of already done a Star Trek episode, because he directed the USS Callister episode of Black Mirror in season 4. So on its surface, like, I'm not exactly the audience, but if this comes out and it does go well, I would be exactly who they want. Someone that's coming in absolutely fresh. And if it works, this could be another path for Star Trek to take.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, is there a danger that people get confused with all of this? But also, I mean, we're hearing, as I just mentioned earlier, how Paramount might get bought out themselves or by Warner Brothers, possibly. There's rumors about. So there are a lot of rumors here going around about Paramount possibly getting sold. So is this them announcing a Top Gun 3, them announcing a Star Trek prequel film? Is this like after the breakup and you go to the gym and you start posting pictures on Tinder? Is this what this is? Like, I'm looking good now. Let's go. Let's, buy me up. Let's have some fun. Is this what's going on here? Like, it seems odd to announce these two things in 1 week. Yeah. Mike,
is that what your Tinder profile said?
Not mine. In those days, I don't know. I think it just said, please date me. For God's sakes, I'm lonely. I think that's all it said. So.
I mean, it's sort of like when Disney and Pixar were on the verge of breaking up before Disney bought Pixar, and Disney had announced all of the sequels to, like, was it a Toy Story 3 or was that Toy Story 3 or Toy Story 4, Mike, that Disney announced?
Toy Story 3, I think.
Okay, and it was like Buzz was going to be recalled. Like, they had all of these announcements that when that sale did become final, Pixar was like, yeah, we're not doing any of that.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, the fact that they've already kind of attached some name talent to it gives me the feeling that these are probably closer than those were.
Yeah, fair point. Well, we'll see what happens as it goes along, because we know this from the last time they started rolling out all this Star Trek news. It never came to fruition. So we'll see what will happen as we go along here. I'm excited about the combination of the director and the writer, but I want to see if this actually comes to fruition down the road. Well, let's take a quick break. And as we go to breaks, I want to remind you all to please subscribe to the channel down below. Hit that bell button after you hit subscribe. Leave your comments down below if you're watching later. Also, don't forget about our podcast. The Geek Buddies are a separate podcast feed as well. In case you want to re-listen to us and not look at our pretty faces, you can download the podcast wherever you download podcasts. And we've started to get some new sponsors. So we'd like you, as you listen to the podcast, to subscribe to those people as well. Patronize those products so that they'll keep sponsoring us here on the Geek Buddies. Just letting you all know that as well. All right, let's take a quick break. And on the other side, we'll come back and talk a little superhero stuff right after this.
Do 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 do.
As a part-time Star Trek fan, I appreciate you doing that. Mikey, what do you got for us, my man?
Well, let's jump over to things at DC, where James Gunn's DC universe is heating up. We've already gotten a bunch of casting announcements about Superman Legacy, and it looks like they are now looking over to Kal-El's cousin Kara as they are casting Supergirl. Yeah. Deadline reports that we have 3 lovely ladies up for the role of Kara Zor-El. We've got Millie Alcock, who most of us know as Rhaenyra Targaryen from House of the Dragon.
Yeah.
We've got Emilia Jones, who many of us saw in the Oscar-winning Coda. She was also in Netflix's Lock and Key. And then we have Meg Donnelly, who is lesser known than the other two, unless you're a big Disney fan, because she was on Disney's Zombies as well as High School Musical. Interestingly enough, Meg Donnelly has actually voiced Supergirl in 2 different animated projects in the past couple of years for DC and Warner Brothers. So 3 actresses, all up for the role of Kara Zor-El in her Supergirl movie. And again, the Supergirl movie is based on Tom King's amazing Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. Woman of Tomorrow? Is that right? I think so.
I think it is, yeah.
Comic book run, which is absolutely fantastic. So, gentlemen, we're back in the mix. DC's heating up. Got some casting announcements going on. It means it's really happening. What do we think?
Yeah, at the risk of pissing off James Gunn, who says, like, it's only half truths or what, I can't speculate, all this stuff. I like this. I like this trio as a possibility for this role. And look, Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, she's a harder edged Supergirl, right? She's seen some shit and seen people die in front of her and gone through some negative stuff. Well, who have we just seen recently go through a lot of negative stuff on a show? Millie Alcock on House of Dragons. So to me, that seems to be the front runner. I've been hearing that from other people that she might be already doing screen tests for the role itself. But I loved Emilia Jones in Coda. It's a completely different energy. It'd be interesting to see her step up. She's got that all-American girl look, So are they going to go with someone who has the trauma written on her face, or someone who's a much more of the mainstream all-American look that's going to have that trauma bubbling underneath, but not necessarily give into that trauma? And I'm not too knowledgeable on Meg Donnelly, but she having voiced over Supergirl in the past recently, I think it's a great choice to have her. And so she'd be intimately knowledgeable of this character. So it's a good trio of actresses for sure to consider for the role. What do you think, Shane?
Yeah, I think all three choices are super exciting. Millie Alcock was one of the standouts from House of the Dragon. I mean, I think everyone in that show did a fantastic job, but she was definitely a standout. I'm kind of with you, though, John. I mean, Emilia Jones is the one that, based off of her work in Coda, I think seems like the strongest choice. But I don't think you can count it. The fact that they are using a performer who voiced Supergirl already, I don't think that's a coincidence. And I think Meg Donnelly could really be kind of the sleeper amongst this group that could pull this out. And my guess, I mean, I've not read that Tom King run, but my guess is that they will want to surround her with whoever they go with, they will want to surround her with a really strong supporting cast. So, and I think it would be awesome for the voice acting community to see someone make the leap from voice acting a role into playing the live action version. I know that has happened in the past. But I think for this role in particular, I think that would be awesome for the voice acting community.
Mike, what do you thought? I mean, I'm not sure if I think Meg Donnelly is American, but Emilia is English. Emilia Alcock is British. Corin Sweat's American. So
I think Alcock's Australian.
Oh, sorry, Australia. Sorry, Australia. Yes. So do you think that factors into any of this at all? Like wanting someone who's American to play, because we've standardly seen the Superman, Supergirl type of thing be played by American actors, or do you think that doesn't?
I mean, look, I think
except for Cavill.
I think we're in pretty well-trod territory at this point. At the risk of offending some of our friends who are American actors, like Australian actors and British actors tend to be a little bit better than a lot of American actors. So
how dare you?
Bring them in. Bring them in.
Whoa!
I said many, not all. They listen. There just tends to be a. They come over and they do a pretty good job.
Yeah.
For the most part. Well, so I don't think that's an issue at all. But like, look, to Shannon's point about surrounding her with a really strong cast, like if you've not read Tom King's Woman of Tomorrow, it's an 8-issue miniseries. It's really easy to tear through. But like, this is not Supergirl on Earth hanging out with the other superheroes.
Right.
Like this is the entire story is. And again, you never know how much they're going to adapt it and how much it's going to be tied into other stuff. So this might not be what the movie is, but this is Supergirl on her 21st birthday flies light years away to a planet orbiting a red sun so that she can get drunk and gets wrapped up in an alien Conan style barbarian-esque like shit with her and Crypto. Like it is a very focused Supergirl story, meaning that Supergirl carries most of this movie. Like this is a great role for any actress to sink her teeth into. This is not Supergirl tagging along with Cal. This is not Supergirl hanging out with a bunch of other superheroes. This is a very strong character piece if they really do base it on this story. Look, I think any three of them would be great. It's kind of like where we were. I think Emilia Alcock is the most well-known. I think Emilia Clarke is kind of maybe my vote out of the performance, but
Emilia Jones.
Emilia Jones, sorry. I don't think any of them can really be counted out. And I think we're kind of in the same place that we were with the Superman casting. James Gunn is good at casting. Yeah. He's really good at it. And, you know, I spoke to a buddy of mine who worked at Marvel a while ago, years, like back when we were in phase 2, phase 3. And he talked about the fact that internally when they spoke about this, that one of Marvel's strengths in those early phases, and I think even now, despite some of the missteps that they've had, was casting. That they cast actors and actresses that were really good performers and didn't necessarily have to be ripped. You can always make someone ripped. You can always give someone blonde hair. You
Yeah,
can always
Caitlin
make
Bieber.
someone.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can always make someone look the way you want them to look, but you find those people that are charming and charismatic and fun and good. And it just seems like James Gunn is very much in that vein with his casting. So even with these three, like I had stronger opinions about Superman and Lois. With these three, any one of the three of them, if any one of them, three of them gets announced, I'm going to be kind of excited.
Well, let me bring two more things up here. I know this is your section, Michael, but I wanted to bring this up.
Hey, it's your show, buddy. Do what you want to do.
It's our show, buddy. I mean, I saw this from some people, and I don't feel this way, but I feel I'd be remiss not to bring this up. But Sasha Calle was such a good Supergirl, in my opinion. A Latina actress. In essence, now the role is going to be played by one of the three white actresses, it seems like. So is there a little feeling of like, here we go. They're going to start doing this more comics accurate now. We're going to see less diversity. What are your thoughts on this? And look, James has done a really good job with diversity. I'm not saying anything negative. I'm saying I've seen this online. How do they address stuff like this as it pops up? What do you think about this?
Look, I thought Sasha Calle did a great job.
Yeah.
But I think that she just through no fault of her own, like is wrapped up in a movie that nobody wants to move on. And look, I know that James Gunn is kind of cherry picking and keeping. Like, yeah, Viola Davis is in some movies where we're not going to carry on with certain characters, but Sasha Calle, everything we know about her character is so tied to you were rescued out of a thing by Michael Keaton and Ezra Miller. So her all of a sudden jumping over and being in a different Supergirl movie, I think there's a little bit of, wait, what? Whereas Viola Davis, even Peacemaker, John Cena, like these characters sort of existed around the DC universe without being directly super involved in the midst of it. And I just think Sasha Calle sticking with that role would have been a little bit more confusing than they want to deal with. So I think through no fault of her own, it's sort of a wrong place, wrong time. And to your other point, even though I do think it's a shame, because I thought she did a great job and I love seeing a Latina actress as Supergirl, I don't think James Gunn's DC universe is going to be lacking in diversity. So I don't think that this is a sign of we're going to all of a sudden go back to making every character look like a white guy and white girl from the 50s and 60s.
Right on. Shannon, any thoughts on that, or should we move to the next question?
No, I agree. But also the fact that she was one of the elements that came out of The Flash that people were like, man, she was really good.
Yeah.
That does not, even though her Supergirl is not carrying over, that does not preclude her from being involved in the DC universe.
Sasha Calle, you mean?
Sasha Calle, the actor.
Yeah.
And also because she is tied to a movie that is kind of not thought of so great in some circles, and not a ton of people saw it.
Right.
So having her play another role, it's not going to be, for me, as maybe ostentatious as Momoa going from Aquaman to Lobo.
Yeah,
everyone's like, that's Aquaman.
Right.
But I think Sasha Calle could pop up in any number of roles, and people are not automatically going to think, wait, she was Supergirl.
Yeah, and James said that. Like, they may not come into the DC universe as the characters they played before, but the door is always open if it makes sense to bring them in. So yeah, I like it. I mean, and I'm cool. Honestly, I loved what we got with Sasha, but I think you're right, Mike. Just caught up, wrong place, wrong time, in the wrong universe. Because if that movie had been $1 billion movie, then maybe we're having a separate conversation. Sasha is making the jump. You can make the claim, like you can make it make sense that she would make the jump over to James Gunn's universe, but that's not the case. One last question here: do you guys think that we're going to see the Supergirl in post-credit scene in Superman Legacy? Do you think that's how she gets introduced? Yeah, maybe.
I mean, all bets are off. Like, we could be entering a DC universe where she's already on Earth and has been there for a while. Like, that we're in a populated superhero universe. We don't really know what James Gunn is kicking things off with. And again, because her story is very much a Supergirl is over here on another planet doing another thing, they could easily have her as part of Superman Legacy, or maybe her story is going to be wrapped up into the reverse. Like, we're going to meet her off on another planet and she's going to come to Earth for the first time. Like, they could, there's a lot of ways that they could take Tom King's run and sort of adapt it into. So I could see it going either way, but the fact that they're casting her now means maybe that we will see her in like a post-credits scene or something like that.
That's a great point. Shannon, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, my writer brain starts going and it's like, okay, if you're not going to do a direct adaptation, which they probably won't, in this superhero world, I mean, aliens exist. I mean,
true.
Guy Gardner's a Green Lantern. I mean, so the idea that whatever the story is for Superman Legacy, we're presuming that, Kal-El comes out on top. And he hears stories about supposedly there's another Kryptonian out there, and he goes to another planet and finds Supergirl.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, that's the beginning. I mean, that to me, that's the beginnings of an exciting story.
Yeah. I love this Melvin Mayo suggestion, Sasha, as Jessica Cruz's Green Lantern. That could be fun down the road. We'll see. We're getting more and more Latina actresses, young Latina actresses coming through. So yeah, there's going to be competition for those roles, which is great to see, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
Michael, go ahead. We got more things. What do you got?
We got more things. Well, this isn't DC news, but we were talking about this with Supergirl. Look, we talk a lot about superheroes on here. And we talk a lot about comic books as far as how they relate. We're talking about it right now with Supergirl, that you should check out that Tom King Woman of Tomorrow run. But we tend to only talk about comics once they've been pulled for this is being adapted into a feature, this is being adapted into this. And we talked about it a lot with Secret Wars with Marvel. We've mentioned the Jonathan Hickman run of Secret Wars and how they might be adapting that. But we sometimes don't hit the comic books when they first come out. So today we wanted to talk about Marvel has low-key been rebooting their Ultimate Universe throughout the summer and has just hit in this past week with Ultimate Spider-Man #1, their brand new Ultimate Spider-Man coming out, again, by Jonathan Hickman, with art by, I have it right here.
Is this it? Yeah, Jonathan Hickman. Yeah. Is this it?
Yep.
Is this what we're talking about here? Oh, wow.
That's it. Yeah. Jonathan Hickman with art from Mark Cicchetto and Matthew Wilson and lettering by Corey Petit. Here's the thing. Okay. Ultimate Universe came out back in 2000. Ultimate Spider-Man #1 by Brian Michael Bendis kicked it off. Ultimate Spider-Man by Bendis is arguably, by a lot of people, one of the best comic book runs that there is, where he reinvented Peter Parker for 2000. Peter Parker was a teenager and kind of retold all the stories that we loved, reintroduced all the characters in the ultimate way. And that led to Ultimate X-Men, the Ultimates, which was the ultimate version of the Avengers, and ultimately led to the creation of a little-known comic book character named Miles Morales, who started in the Ultimate Universe. So the Ultimate run was pretty big. After several years, it kind of got bogged down in its own continuity. And when Hickman did the Secret Wars thing, they kind of used that as an opportunity to sort of collapse the Ultimate Universe. But it was a really, really great run and gave us a lot. I mean, in addition to Miles Morales, it's the first time that Nick Fury was black. And I think Nick Fury in the Ultimates even says in the comic books that Sam Jackson should play him in the movie. So a lot of what we saw in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, a lot of that came from the Ultimate Marvel's comic books line. So what they've done now over the summer, there's a 4-issue miniseries called Ultimate Invasion, followed by a single issue called Ultimate Universe. And now they're kicking things off with this Ultimate Spider-Man, and Ultimate Black Panther is coming, and Ultimate X-Men is coming. And this is wild. This is a universe where the ultimate version of Reed Richards, who ultimately was a bad guy, super evil Reed Richards, goes back to his universe and wipes out all superheroes, changes history so that no superheroes ever happen. So Peter Parker was never bitten by the radioactive spider. Ultimate Spider-Man opens up with a 36-year-old Peter Parker who is married to MJ and has 2 kids and was never Spider-Man. And through a series of events, ultimately is going to become I know I keep saying ultimately. I'm doing it for you, Shannon. I'm doing it all for you. Going to become a new Spider-Man. And this brand new comic book totally changes everything we know. I don't want to give away too much, but let's just say most of the stuff that you know about Spider-Man and his origin and why he became Spider-Man and who dies and who doesn't is not the same in this version. Wow. So people are freaking out about it online. It's super huge. And I'm just here to say, as someone who just read all of it, I highly recommend you check this out now before it's thousands of issues in and you have to go sift through everything. This is brand new. It looks like it's going to be pretty awesome. Gentlemen, I know you haven't read it yet, but what do you think of Marvel kind of rebooting their Ultimate Universe?
I think I'm ready to open a folder. And I haven't been ready to open a folder in a very, very long time. This sounds exciting. And are those Brian Michael Bendis ones available as like a compendium or you can get them? Okay. I'm gonna maybe make that a focus.
Bendis wrote, I think Bendis,
I love his Daredevil, man. I love
Bendis wrote every single issue of Ultimate Spider-Man, and there's a lot of them. Okay. And ultimately I can't say, God damn it.
Rodney says it best. Ultimate Vogel.
Ultimate Vogel. I'll take it. Peter Parker getting bit by the spider, ultimately to the end of Peter Parker's journey in the Ultimate Universe, which led to Miles Morales. And again, I remember not wanting to read this new Spider-Man comic by Brian Michael Bendis because I was like, Peter Parker's Spider-Man. I don't know who this kid is. Yeah. And then opened up page 1 of the Miles Morales comic and was like, oh my God, he did it again. So the Ultimate Universe is a great read all the way through. But yeah, this new version, you don't have to know the Ultimate Universe. All you really need to know is from the Jonathan Hickman Secret Wars run, which Shannon has referenced a lot, which has the evil Reed Richards from the Ultimate Universe, as well as the Marvel Universe's Reed Richards in it, and that Ultimate bad guy Reed Richards gets captured at the end. And if you pick up Ultimate Invasion, that's kind of where things kick off.
So these are out now. These Ultimate ones that are current, those are out now.
Yeah, there's again, Ultimate Invasions 1 through 4.
Yeah.
Followed by Ultimate Universe, which is a one-shot. Okay. Followed by Ultimate Spider-Man #1, which just came out.
And so if I read all that with the Secret Wars, I should be good to go to start.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Shannon, what do you think of this?
I mean, What If is one of my favorite things to come out of Marvel. I mean, not just the Disney Plus series, but the comics as well. And this sounds like a big what if. A big what if arc.
Yeah.
And the idea of a 36-year-old Peter Parker who never got bit by the spider. I mean, that's really, really interesting to me. I mean, I do all of my Marvel comic reading on my Marvel Unlimited app. So I don't know what the turnaround is for something to hit the stands versus to get on the app, but that's probably where I'll look at it first, unless I can spy the comics in Vogel's apartment and surreptitiously borrow them.
You would have to surreptitiously borrow the iPad, but yes, you could do that.
I've done that, Matt Fraction. I've done that before. Yeah, it's not a bad.
Oh, you did. You had that Hawkeye comic for a long time.
Not only did Johnny have it a long time, I saw the Hawkeye the hardback in John's apartment. I said, "Hey, can I borrow this?" And he went, "Yeah, sure, take it.
Take it."
And it wasn't until I was telling Vogel, I'm like, "Hey, Johnny loaned me that Matt Fraction Hawkeye series. It's really great." He's like, "Oh, did he?"
Me Libro is your Libro. That's all I'm saying. All right, Mike, anything more to wrap up this one?
No, that's it. I just think, we don't talk about comics as much as we should. And all of us should be keeping up more on what's going on in the comics, because as we're looking at where the MCU is going, where the DC universe is going, even things like Invincible. I mean, a lot of this, you can see what's going to be coming up next by checking out what's really popping at the comic book shop. And we should all be supporting comic books. So I highly recommend checking this out.
Yeah, I should absolutely take a look at that situation. And, you set up. I mean, it used to be easier when it was cheaper. Now these are a little more expensive, but if you want to get into it, why not? It's a way to go. All right. Well, let's take a quick break here, and then we'll get into some Star Wars stuff and get into your Streamlabs and Super Chats after that here, right after this. All right, my man. Shannon McClung, take it away.
Well, we found out earlier this week, but the three of us are going to talk about it with you all now. Din Djarin, the Mandalorian, and Grogu are going to be hitting the big screen, directed by Jon Favreau, in the aptly named The Mandalorian and Grogu. It was announced earlier this week in The Hollywood Reporter that they were going to be doing. It sounds like this is going to be the first Star Wars film that is going into production since Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. And along with this announcement, it was also confirmed that Dave Filoni is developing the second season of Ahsoka. So we had heard rumors about this, probably on the hot mic, about Mandalorian season 4 potentially becoming a movie that would then dovetail into Filoni's movie. And now this, we don't know if it's definitely going to dovetail directly into Filoni's movie, but we now know that Mandalorian film is happening. What is it going to look like for Din Djarin to make the leap to the big screen, to see tiny little Grogu on an IMAX screen near you? Gentlemen, what do you think about this news? Let's start with the Mandalorian, but then we'll go to Ahsoka. Johnny, why don't you take it away?
Yeah, I spoke about this, on the hot mic on Tuesday, so I'll let my two learned colleagues take more of the brunt of this one. But I'll just say right now, this is a smart move by Disney. This is how, the backlash to Charmin Obaid-Chinoy, which you can't deny now, the backlash to a Rey movie was brewing among certain sections of the fandom. How do you get people to be excited about your product again? You go back to something that people loved, The Mandalorian and Grogu. It doesn't mean that the Rey movie's not happening. Those other movies aren't happening. But it's not a coincidence that they're putting this in rapid they're moving this quickly into production, doing it starting this year, for God's sake. So to me, that says that they want to get people back excited about the franchise. They want to reach past the Star Wars fan to the mainstream casual Star Wars fans with Baby Grogu, Baby Yoda. So they want to do this. And I think it's going to be a self-contained film. I think it's going to have certain people pop in, but I don't think it's going to be this massive Empire Strikes Back type of movie, because Iger has said he wants to keep the budget low on everything that's coming out from Disney right now. So I think this is a smart move, an intelligent move overall for the brand. But overall, just excited because I like Mando and Grogu, and we'll see what we're going to get from this movie. Michael, take it away.
Mikey, what do you think?
I mean, look, I do think John is right. Partially, it's smart. Grogu and Din Djarin are two of the best things to happen to Star Wars in the past decade. Like hands down. Like, Baby Yoda is a fucking beast. Just from a consumer product standpoint, he's like keeping Star Wars afloat all on its own.
Yeah.
He is a great character that we're all super invested in. He's kind of like the thing that every Star Wars fan agrees on.
Yeah.
Like, we are all just like, Grogu's cool. Grogu's cool. Grogu's badass. I want to know Grogu's story. I want to know what he's like in 50 years when he's actually a badass little Mandalorian Jedi. Like, I'm 100% on board with Grogu's journey, and Din Djarin as the Mandalorian is the Boba Fett that we don't have. Like, Boba Fett went on Boba Fett's journey, and we're all kind of like, okay, you can go sit there and sit in your palace, and we're good with you, Boba, but give us more Mando. Like, Mando's the Boba Fett that we always wanted. So the two of them are great, and I think partially John's right. This is a goodwill. Like, this is a thing that no Star Wars fan can really get upset about. Yeah. I also think it's getting put into production because I don't think it's an accident that this and Ahsoka season 2 were announced at the same time. Like, whatever Filoni wants to do, there is a Mandalore storyline with Bo-Katan and Din Djarin and Grogu that needs to get to a certain point.
Yeah.
And there is an Ahsoka storyline, where we left everybody on that planet and Thrawn coming back and Ezra returning, that needs to get to a certain point. And both of these stories need to get to a certain point so that Dave Filoni's movie can happen.
Yeah.
So I think the Grogu Mando movie, which is whatever they were planning to do in season 4 and decided let's supersize it into a movie, is like, just from a timeline story standpoint, as they're all sitting in the room and whiteboarding everything, it's like, all right, Mando gets here, Grogu gets here, Bo-Katan gets here, then over here, Ezra's here, Hera's here, Thrawn is here, Ahsoka's here, Sabine is here. Okay, now Filoni go. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing happen, which, look, I'm excited about. Every character that I just named, despite the fact that not every part of Ahsoka thrilled me, and despite the fact that Mando season 3 is not Mando season 1 or Mando season 2, I love all those characters. And I'm excited. Like, I don't think that I have been this excited to think about sitting in a theater and that Star Wars crawl coming up, knowing that I'm about to see a Mando and Grogu adventure, as I've been about Star Wars in a while. So I think they're doing the smart thing with this.
Yeah, and a couple of things. I mean, I think one of the things that is so great about these bigger franchises when they are still, pumped with goodwill, is that sort of shared vocabulary that the audience has. And even though this will be their first Grogu and the Mandalorian's first adventure on the big screen, like as you both already put, like these characters are insanely popular. Like the series is insanely popular, and there is going to be an energy in the theater that I imagine we will be seeing the night before in a packed house. The first time we see Grogu come on screen, the first time we see Din Djarin come on screen. Now, in terms of them, allegedly they may start filming by the end of this year. A couple of things to take into account. One, Pedro Pascal.
Yeah.
Like, is this going to be another Mandalorian adventure where that helmet is on the whole time? Because as we found out, generally when that helmet's on, it ain't Pedro. He's in a VO booth recording those lines afterwards. But I would think, because this is the first big screen adventure, I would have to think that helmet's going to come off at some point. But next year, or rather this year, is a very packed year for Pedro Pascal. He has The Last of Us season 2. He dropped out of Zach Krager's movie, right, John?
Weapons. Yeah, he dropped out of that. Yep.
To allegedly make room for Fantastic Four. Right. So when are they going to find the time to get Pedro Pascal on set? Also, when Mandalorian season 1 started, that was the introduction of the volume to audiences for series, for television, and you could see the absolute the giant leaps that they were able to make with this technology, as not just Star Wars, but other series, other films have started to employ the volume. You have started to see the limitations of that. I'm thinking mainly of Obi-Wan Kenobi and Thor: Love and Thunder. Like, there were definitely some scenes where it's like, this doesn't look quite right. Like, you wonder going forward, again, it's a big movie. I imagine they're going to want to fill that screen with other people, with other characters. Yeah. Is the volume something they are going to be using for this film? And also, Big Shaq just said it. They used the volume in the Batman movie. Yeah. A lot of the scenes with Batman and Gordon, and some with Catwoman, when they were in that dilapidated building with the signal, like, that was the volume. So you can see where it does look good on the big screen. But is this a technology that they are going to employ? Because we have seen it not work. Yeah. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see what happens. As far as Ahsoka season 2, that finale ended. And it was pretty clear that, like, the story is not done. Like, right. This story is going to continue. Who are they going to get for Baylan Skoll? I mean, to replace Ray Stevenson? Like, there are a bunch of what ifs in the air right now. Gentlemen, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Michael said it earlier. This is what I think is happening. We're going to get the Mando Grogu movie, then the Charmin Obaid-Chinoy movie, the Rey movie. If that movie happens, I'm just throwing it out there. The Mangold movie, and then Filoni's Infinity War Endgame movies, in essence, is what's coming. Ahsoka season 2, you have to further those storylines along, so it makes sense. Deadline also said that this doesn't mean there's not going to be a Mandalorian season 4, and that they hear it's still in production. So is this movie just going to be a filler in between season 3 and season 4 that still pushes us towards that overall Filoni movie we're getting down the road? I don't know. But for Ahsoka season 2, there's no way those storylines aren't connected in massive ways to the overall story that Filoni is trying to tell here. So to me, it makes sense. I'm not surprised by it. Rosario was kind of hinting at it. So now they're going forward with it. And yeah, I'm sure they'll figure out who to cast with Baylan. And there's plenty of actors that they can look at. Maybe not with Ray Stevens is quite a gravitas for that role, but certainly there are a lot of actors they can look at. Mike, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, look, recasting him is just going to suck. Anyone who steps into that role is stepping into some pretty big Jedi robes to fill. So that part is a bummer. But, with Ahsoka season 2, I hope, how do I say this? I like where we ended up.
Okay.
I'm glad that Thrawn is back. I'm glad that Ezra is reunited with Hera. I'm interested in what Ahsoka and Sabine are doing on this planet. I'm interested in tying in the stories of the Mortis arc, the mother, the brother, the sister, the father. There's a lot of stuff that I'm really interested in as a hardcore Star Wars nerd. I hope they adjust some of their storytelling based on some of the feedback they've gotten. I think that Ahsoka maybe moved a little slower than it needed to. And I think that, and I've said this before, I think Filoni has done a whole lot for Star Wars. So I still am like all on board the Filoni train. But I think that Dave Filoni has a tendency to hold a lot in reserve. He really doesn't want characters to talk about things. He just sort of like has them talk around a lot of things. And a lot of Ahsoka was, here's some big issues and let's just not talk about them. And then let's have another character fill us in later on.
Yeah.
And, oh, this is what Sabine and Ahsoka were fighting about. Oh, okay, cool. Thanks. Well, I'd like to see them talk about it. So I think that I really want Ahsoka 2 to sort of pick up the pace. Kind of the same way that Mando season 2 did. I think Mando season 1 was a lot of fun, but those episodes were very standalone. And I think we got to season 2 and we really kind of hit warp speed on that. So I would like to see that. But all in all,
you went into hyperspace. You went into hyperspace.
Okay,
hit warp speed.
Okay.
Respect the brand, man.
Look, ultimately, it's the same thing.
Wow.
But no, so look, I'm excited about all this. Like, I think even if we get like a season 4 of Mando, like seeing them on the big screen, I think it's all they're putting the right characters at the forefront for Star Wars.
Yeah. Well, I mean, gentlemen, Favreau directing it makes sense because Filoni has no theatrical experience, right? As a director, certainly there are.
Well, he's about to.
Well, yeah, right. He's about to, but you want to, maybe give him a little more time before we get to it. But like the Ahsoka season 1, his directing, some people had some issues with. But you look at Favreau, I mean, Iron Man, yes. Iron Man 2, maybe not so much. Cowboys and Aliens, really not so much. Chef is nice. Jungle Book is good. Lion King is tracing. And then we get to an episode of The Mandalorian. So also not necessarily a, 90% great director overall. He's had some hits and misses. Elf, of course, being one of the biggest hits for him. Zathura, people are on the fence about. And of course, Maid was a good film as well. But what are your thoughts, guys? Is Favreau gonna be able to recapture that magic he had in Iron Man and other films?
Yeah, look, I don't think Iron Man 2 is a good movie. I don't think Cowboys and Aliens is a good movie. But the directing is solid in that. Like, the scripts are not good. But it's not like he shit the bed as a director. Like Favreau's a good director. Like he's I think he's definitely, look, I can't think. I love Spielberg. I could list a bunch of Spielberg movies that I don't think are great either. Like, I think that Favreau has proven himself to be a solid director. And I think that having him helm any movie, if you told me that Favreau was directing anything, I'd be like, great, he's a great director. I'm excited to see what he does. Like, I think he's more than proven himself behind the camera, even if he's had some stinkers in there. So I think having him in your corner, whether you're Marvel or Lucasfilm, as a creative storyteller, as a director, as someone who's going to step to helm something, I think him directing this movie and then handing those characters off to Filoni to direct. Hopefully Filoni is getting more of his sea legs under him and is going to your point, going to be ready to run with that ball. But like, I think that, I think that Favreau's good. I'm good with that choice.
Yeah. And these are characters that are near and dear to his heart. These are things that he came up with. So the hope is that extra care will be taken. Like, it would be really interesting to have like kind of a very transparent conversation because it's been well documented. Like Iron Man 2, like he wanted more time. Like that was a really, really quick turnaround from Iron Man 1 into Iron Man 2, and that the final product did suffer as a result of they just didn't have the time to nail the story the way they would like to. Lion King's an interesting one. It was sort of like Disney just really wanted you to do this, so you said okay because
$1.6 billion. So yeah,
I mean, and it was incredibly successful. But no one, in my opinion, no one talks about that movie favorably. It was sort of the thing that he did in between Jungle Book and getting to do the Mandalorian.
Yeah. It's kind of like X-Men Last Stand. Yeah, it made the most money of all the X-Men movies, but no one really talks about that film favorably. Yeah, that's a great point. Anything more on this, gentlemen, or shall we? Any other speculation you want to make? Like, we haven't heard anything about Andor season 2 for fuck's sake. So
well, I think we haven't heard anything because it's like it's coming.
Okay.
Like there's no news because like they shot it all at the same time.
Yeah.
So we got like a great season of Andor. We all know it's amazing. Season 2 of Andor is coming. We're going to get it. It's going to be awesome. And then we're going to be good to go.
Okay. I hope so. I know. I've heard from people that Filoni's not a big fan of Andor. So, it's a shame. All right. Anyway. All right. Well, let's take a quick break. And on the other side, we're going to answer your Streamlabs and Super Chats and then get into our spoiler review for Echo. Thank you so much for joining us live. 300 of you hanging out with us here, over 300 of you hanging out with us here this morning on the West Coast, at least morning. So we appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button down below, hit that bell button, leave comments if you're watching later. And if you want to send support, hit that super thanks button. You can send in financial support for the channel, for the show, if you feel like it. Also, the Streamlabs and Super Chats, we're going to get to them here. So send them in as we're going along here. And don't forget about our podcast, the Geek Buddies podcast, wherever you download podcasts. Go and subscribe to that because we've gotten some cool new sponsors. So we want to get more and more numbers behind that. So more and more sponsors come aboard to support us and also support those sponsors that promote their products on our shows. We would appreciate that as well. All right, let's take a quick break and we'll jump into those Streamlabs and Super Chats on the other side of this.
Bum ba-da-da, bum ba-da-ba-ba, bum ba-da-ba, bum ba-da-ba.
What is this?
That's the second part of the Mandalorian.
Oh, that was okay. All right.
I mean, it was an attempt at it.
Oh, boy.
Okay, wow. I went a little high. No one bats 1,000.
Not even Favreau.
Not even Favreau. Francisco Lopez says, if it's true, I'm glad Kang will still be the big bad or big part of the saga. They can't let the Majors situation affect their story. It has to continue. Yeah, guys, thoughts on this? Jonathan Majors interview earlier this week, but then a lot of people coming around on Coleman Domingo possibly playing Kang. So what are your thoughts on this real quick? Mike?
It's kind of what I said last week. I just think it's fun. Marvel fans are funny. You're like, all right, yeah, let's get rid of Kang. Bring in Doom. Let's. This multiverse is weird. Hey, what about Coleman Domingo? Yeah, more Kang. I don't disagree. I think that Marvel, as they look, Marvel. Like, this is what I think. I think Marvel had an opportunity to get off the Kang train if they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if they are going to choose to continue on the Kang train, it means that they think they've got a great Kang story. Like, so I'm going to give them the credit. Now, they might not. We might all think they don't have a good Kang story at the end of the day. But they had a perfect opportunity to go, we bit off more than we could chew. Let's do something different.
Yeah.
And if they do recast Kang and continue with that story, it means they feel pretty confident that what they've got is good. So if they feel confident and they have the time to fix it, I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. And then we'll see what happens when it happens.
All right. Shannon, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. But also, I think them coming into phase 4, they were very confident about some of the offerings that they had. And there was, as evidenced by perhaps the declining enthusiasm, that they were maybe a little off. But also you can point to the fact that they were doing more than they've ever done. And there was just sort of a lack of focus that they all are kind of acknowledging now, and that they're taking this time to kind of refocus. And if Kang still plays a part of that refocusing, Coleman Domingo is a very dynamic actor. And if you want someone to fill those, time hopping shoes, he could do it.
Michael, I'm guilty. Yeah, I said no more Kang. Coleman Domingo. All right, bring him back. I'm not going to I got no shame in my game. I got not going Francisco said, is there a chance you guys will do a spoiler review for Monarch Legacy of Monsters? I'm still only halfway through the season. I can certainly catch up if we want to do a spoiler review, maybe as a Geek Bite next week. Could be a lot of fun, but we'll keep you in the loop, Francisco, if we do that. Gentlemen, yes?
Yeah.
I got a spoiler review.
Okay. All right. Christian Contreras says, thoughts on Twisted Metal? I really enjoyed it, but I feel like it isn't being talked about. I hope I didn't bring up the celestial in the ocean. I love that. I have not seen Twisted Metal. So have you guys watched it at all? And any thoughts on it?
I watched the first episode and it was fine. Like I've heard that the first episode isn't the strongest, so I mean maybe that is something I will go back to. But yeah, that the vibe that I got was, oh, this is an easy show to throw on and not totally pay attention to, and I've got about 20 of those. So that's kind of the feeling. But maybe we'll go back and watch the second episode. We'll see.
Okay. Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. Like I'm like, oh, I'm interested in this. I should watch this. And then I'm like, ooh, but I got Blue-Eyed Samurai. Ooh, but I got the latest episode of For All Mankind. Ooh, I should really go catch up on, like, there's just so many things. So if you all tell us that we should watch it, I'll go check it out.
Okay, sounds good. Andy Soul says, how would you guys feel about the actors that auditioned for Lois Lane getting another shot with Supergirl? Phoebe Dynevor, Emma Mackey, Samara Weaving. I think they, how can I say this correctly without getting hate mail about aging in Hollywood? It just feels like, and I'm not sure, but it feels like they're slightly older out of the time frame that maybe James would be looking for Supergirl. So I think that's why they're not going to get a shot, but I don't know. Gentlemen, what do you think?
I would say Emma Mackey, definitely. I think, she was playing a college freshman, high school senior not that long ago, believably, in my opinion. So Samara Weaving, I would say no. Okay. And Phoebe Dynevor, I'm not able to see her face right now. But of the three, I would say Emma Mackey, it would be great to give her a shot.
Okay. What are your thoughts here, Mike?
Yeah, I'm kind of with Shannon. I think out of the three, the one that I would, if I were a casting director, be like, oh yeah, bring her in, would be Emma Mackey.
Okay. She's 28. So let's say it's close to 30. So I'm just saying. JMB says, and I'm not saying, look, we just saw 24-year-old Renee Rapp supposedly play a senior in high school. JMB
listen, have you seen Grease?
Bro, trust me. Bro, you're right. Listen, I go back and watch some of those movies. I'm like, wait a minute.
I mean, you go back and you watch Grease, and I'm like, high school? This is an AARP meeting. Like, what is this?
Are these the teachers cosplaying as teenagers? Anyway, JMB said, what about Trek between the original series and the Next Generation? There's like a 75-year gap there. Or are we treading dangerously close to the Star Wars dilemma of going backwards? Yeah, I mean, if you have a good story to tell, I think there's always places and times that have not been explored that could be interesting to explore for sure. But yeah, you have to have a great story, and it's always dangerous with Star Wars.
Yeah, you never want to say no. Like, if there's a great story, there's a great story. I would have told you that doing an entire story about Pike and the crew of the Enterprise before Kirk and Spock came on was not a great idea. And I would have been wrong because Strange New World is absolutely killing it. Yeah. So if there's a really great story in there, absolutely. But I do think, you do run into that Star Wars dilemma. At a certain point, you run out of space. Like, look, Clone Wars is great. Rogue One is great. Rebels is great. So you can definitely go in and create new characters and fill in gaps where you have 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. But you also shouldn't do it too much.
Right. Agreed. Shannon, thoughts on that?
I'll leave that one to you all.
All right, let's hit some Streamlabs, and we'll circle back to the Super Chats in a second. Doug Developer says, hi, guys. I'm thinking of writing a screenplay for fun, and I'd just like to ask the writers on the panel, ouch, what helped you improve your skills the most? Was it a class, joining a writer's group, a specific screenwriting book? Thanks a bunch. Gentlemen.
For me, it's actually, it was, you can find these on Amazon or at Barnes & Noble if you have a local bookstore near you, but finding a film that in its text form and being able to kind of, like, again, a film that you know real well and seeing kind of how things are laid out, not just the dialogue, but also the descriptions of the scene, the action. That's a big help, is kind of seeing the visual representation of something that you already know on a page. And also just seeing movies, watching TV shows. I mean, I never took a proper screenwriting course. I mean, a lot of what I know how to do is a result of reading my friends' work, but also just having watched a lot of film and television. And you sort of, even though you might not know the exact terminology at the beginning, you will have a sense of how things are supposed to go. Vogel was the one who had to explain to me what an Act 1 break meant. And I was just like, oh, you mean when this happens? Like, yeah, that's what this means. And it's like, oh, okay, got it.
Right. Mike, do you want to add some more to this?
Yeah, like there's a lot of great books on structure and screenwriting. I think Shannon's right. I think reading scripts and screenplays from movies that you love, which you can find at Barnes & Noble, is a great start. You sort of see how it's laid out, where the action is, where the dialogue is, the way they describe things. This is a book that I actually just had on my desk because somebody else asked me about it, but I got this years ago. It's called The Writer's Journey. The Writer's Journey, Mythic Structure for Storytellers and Screenwriters by Christopher Vogler. So there it is for anybody who wanted. The Writer's Journey, Mythic Structure for Storytellers and Screenwriters. And I thought this was a great book because it kind of talks about the hero's journey, a lot of the stuff that George Lucas was inspired by in Star Wars, and kind of gives you movie examples. So the way that I sort of started to build my understanding of how movies were structured was around that. You could go to like Save the Cat. If you look up Save the Cat online, that's an entire storytelling methodology. Story by Robert McKee is another big one, but there's no one way to tell a story. I think getting the more theories that you can, like there it is, Story by Robert McKee.
Yeah.
None of them are 100% right, but all of them kind of start to give you that language of being able to talk about a movie in a more structural way. So that when you're talking to other writers, you see it. And I think that combined with then reading the scripts of the movies you love, and then going back and watching the movies you love. Like the thing that made it the easy, I always use Disney movies as examples, but like being able to go like, oh, Little Mermaid is about this. This is the core emotional issue in Little Mermaid. This is the Act 1 break in Little Mermaid. This is the Act 2 break in Little Mermaid. And being able to go through the movies you love and identify those moments helps you start to figure out how you can put those moments in your script.
Yeah. Well, that's great advice, both of you, for anyone who's interested in getting into writing. Puerto Geekin said a few weeks back on the Hot Mic, I proposed casting Alan Ritchson as the Authority's Midnighter. What do you think about pairing him up with Lee Pace as Apollo? Ooh. I defer to our resident gay geek buddy, Michael.
Alan, who?
Alan Ritchson from Reacher.
Jack Reacher.
From Reacher.
Oh, ooh, oh. And Lee Pace? I could see that. That's actually pretty good casting. Now that I wouldn't have thought of either of those two. Yeah. But I think as I'm thinking of Apollo and Midnighter, I think they both sort of fit that vibe. Like, Midnighter and Apollo are interesting. Like, for those that don't know, it's the Authority. The Authority is like, that's basically their version of Superman and Batman, except that they're gay lovers, and Apollo is a complete Superman style badass, and Midnighter wears a whole lot of leather and a mask. But I think that they kind of fit that vibe.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Shannon, your thoughts on that as a fellow Reacher fan? Yeah, you like that?
I mean, so I had this discussion with Mike Kalinowski, who loves Reacher.
I don't know, champ. I don't know. Yeah.
Watching Alan Ritchson beat the crap out of someone is so satisfying. Yeah. I feel like when Alan Ritchson is acting, I don't think he is the strongest.
I don't disagree with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can look back at his work in Titans when he was Hawk, or even to some of the Hunger Games movies. He does not convey the best with dialogue. It feels very, very stilted to me. Champ Kalinowski tried to tell me, well, that's Reacher. That's Reacher. I'm like, yeah, but that's what he does in everything. So if Midnighter is sort of a stilted line delivering character, then yeah.
Okay. There you go.
But again, watching him punch someone is a lot of fun.
I agree. It is. It is. I love that show. And the second season was fucking fantastic. So, all right. I am Two Fly Cam says a beautiful NIL scandal from Florida State to wrap the college football season up. LOL. Seminoles just can't help but violate some rules. First of all, I am Two Fly Cam. That is a bunch of horse shit. Who was the loudest accuser of the bullshit going on at the NCAAs by them not letting us be in the playoffs because the SEC has allegedly bought them out? Oh, it was Florida State. So, of course, they're going to go and try and find shit. But sign stealing university barely got a slap on the wrist, and they won a national championship. So you tell me if the fix is in that they went after the one school who is they're the only school violating the NI rule is Florida State. Suck a bag of D's. Anyway, are you telling me Star Wars saw the Benioff and Weiss movie concept about the first Jedi and just gave it to Mangold? Wow. Lawyers. Yeah, gentlemen, that came out earlier this week. Benioff and Weiss.
We done talking about football? We done?
Look, it happened up. It just showed up. Yeah, we're talking about real quick Benioff and Weiss.
Right, I'm back.
All right, good. That's good. The Hollywood Reporter had or is it Hollywood Reporter? I think it was Hollywood Reporter did a long conversation with Benioff and Weiss about all their projects because they've got Three Body Problem coming out, which looks like an awesome. The trailer is great. And they asked him about the Star Wars film, and they essentially said that they proposed doing a Dawn of the Jedi movie called The First Jedi, and that that Lucasfilm felt like they weren't the droids they were looking for, and now we've got a film coming out essentially that is the Dawn of the Jedi from James Mangold. So, is this a matter of it's not you, it's me? What happened here?
So if you are hired by a studio to develop a property, and in this case, Benioff and Weiss developing a Star Wars take, and ultimately that take with you in charge does not go forward, the studio still owns that. I mean, because you're working for them. It's the same situation with the Rey movie with Damon Lindelof. I mean, that was something that they came in and pitched. They, Lucasfilm said, they started developing it. Ultimately, it's like, hey, we like the idea. We don't want to, we're not working well together. So the studio still owns it. So, but I think the concept of a Dawn of the Jedi, like that people are talking about ways to expand their brands all the time. Yeah. And so the idea that Benioff and Weiss were the ones who introduced this probably isn't accurate. But even if they were, it's still Star Wars. They were hired to do a job. They did the job. It didn't go forward. So it's theirs to do with what they want.
Okay. Michael, your thoughts on this? Is it pretty?
I don't think going in and pitching, let's do the beginning of the Jedi is the most, like, it's not like they're, holy shit. You mean there was a beginning to the Jedi? What? A beginning to the Jedi? Like, okay, guys, like, yes, you pitched something that you probably weren't the first people to come up with that. You won't be the last. And Shannon's right. Even if Lucasfilm had never thought about doing a story about the origin of the Jedi, which I find hard to believe. You pitch somebody a thing. Yeah. And they, like, it's one thing if Benioff and Weiss had been like, if Star Wars had come out and said, we are doing a story about a droid that rises up and says, I don't like how droids are treated, and becomes the very first droid Jedi. And they said, no thanks. And then Mangold was like, so I'm telling this story about a droid Jedi. Like, that's more specific, that you're like, okay, maybe that's fucked up. But the Dawn of the Jedi, it's like, get the fuck out of here.
Fair enough. All right. We got more Streamlabs Super Chats to get to, but we'll put those at the end of the show here. Let's take a quick break, and we'll jump into our Echo review. And this is a spoiler review of the first 5 episodes, or the 5 episodes rather, here on the channel. 322 of you joining us right now. Make sure you subscribe down below. Hit that bell button. Subscribe to our podcast. Support our sponsors, and we'll be right back right after this.
Do 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 ba 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 ba.
You clearly gave him a lot of inspiration, Michael, to do better on that one. So that was good. I like that.
He's done that one a few times. He's had practice.
All right, let's move on. Let's see. There's no satisfying some people. Let's move on to Echo here. The first 5 episodes dropped earlier this week.
The 5 episodes, not the first.
Yes, sorry. The 5 episodes.
All of them.
some people had a shot at watching the first three. This is the first time I think that I can remember where I waited till all the episodes dropped. I had a feeling that it would have been, that it was like a complete thing to watch. And I'm glad I did, because I think I got the feeling that this was a story, the way the story was meant to be told. And I kind of enjoyed that overall. This is from creator and showrunner Marion Dare, who was a Better Call Saul veteran, lead director, and EP Sidney Freeland, of course, a very big part of this. Amy Rardin, one of the writers on this one, starring Alcock Cox as Maya Lopez / Echo, Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin, Devery Jacobs as Bonnie, who some of you may know from Reservation Dogs, and also recently as the voice of Kahori in the What Ifs episode. Tantu Cardinal as Chula. Tantu is so great. Legendary actress from Dance with Wolves, recently on Dark Winds. Graham Greene, Dance with Wolves, as Scully. Chasque Spencer as Henry Black Crow Lopez. Cody Lightning as Biscuits. Darnell Bissaw as the young Maya. And Zan McLaren as William Lopez, reprising the role as Maya's dad. This one is essentially about a deaf Choctaw girl, that is who Echo is, whose mother dies when she's a little girl, whose father then moves from Oklahoma to New York City to work for Kingpin in essence. And after her father dies, Maya becomes his enforcer, finds out that Kingpin actually set up her father to die, shoots him in the face, and then heads off to Tamaha, Oklahoma to recover and possibly take over Kingpin's franchise, and then finds out he's alive, which leads to a massive battle. This also goes back in time to show that her Echo is not necessarily that she can imitate other people's moves like we saw in the comics, but that her ancestors are echoing through her as both a fighter and a healer, and that's where things end up at the end. So, gentlemen, this is also the first series to carry the Spotlight banner, and the first one to be rated TVMA. So, Michael, I go to you first, as I do with these reviews. Your overall thoughts on these 5 episodes of Echo in the Echo series?
Man, it's a mixed bag, to be honest with you. Echo is a real mixed bag for me, because I don't think it's great.
Yeah.
I think the first episode particularly is kind of a mess, and the Echo Kingpin storyline is just filled with stuff that I'm like, wait, what? So we know that Wilson Fisk is the guy who doesn't even want to be named, who's behind the scenes, but he happens to have Fisk shipping in Echo's hometown. And like, there was just so many things that I was like, okay, what? Echo wants to be the queen pin of crime, and the way that she decides to do that is to go back to her hometown where she doesn't want to talk to anybody and do it from there. Like, there were just so many things where I was like, what's going on? And I didn't really love that. I was very frustrated by a lot of the storytelling. Okay. That being said, I think the entire cast of actors was great. I think really leaning into Echo's heritage as a Choctaw Indian, indigenous person was great. I think the adaptation of Echo's powers and to do this whole storyline of your ancestors are echoing through you was great. And I think that Alcock Cox as Echo is great. Like, I really like her. So by the time we got to the end of it, I thought that I really liked where Echo was. And I really kind of was very, I just felt very like I liked the cast. I really just liked all of the characters that she surrounded herself with, but the actual storyline and some of the things they did, I was just like, what the fuck are you doing? Also, as much as I made fun of them for having a bunch of trailers that were like, this is TVMA, violence like you've never seen before, I'm still wondering where the TVMA was.
There was some blood. There was
a little bit of blood, but like, look, you tell me that Punisher is TVMA, you tell me that Daredevil on Netflix is TVMA, and I watch it and I'm like, yeah, you're right. Like, that's intense. This, I was like, this is a Marvel movie with this much more fake blood. Like, it was not very, and just all of the Echo Wilson Fisk stuff, I just was like, what? He like shows up and he's like, let's have some wine, come back, don't come back. So I'm going to kidnap your family who I don't even really know. there was so much sort of happenstance and coincidence to the actual plot line that it drove me crazy. But emotionally, and from a really leaning into her heritage stuff, it was great.
Okay. Shannon, your overall thoughts on this series?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty uneven. I think by the time you get to the end of episode 5, even the way they conclude everything, it's like, I feel like this feels like an incomplete. Yeah. Like there was supposed to be more here, and you just kind of ran out of time because it didn't really end. Like it was just sort of like, oh, okay, now we have a little musical montage catching up with everybody, and that's it. Okay. Yeah. Alcock Cox is fantastic. And you know, I think we always knew she could bring that intensity from Hawkeye, but watching her scenes with her grandmother when she says, you know, I needed you, you chose yourself. And then that scene with her mom, I watched the finale this morning, and in a show that I thought, dropped the ball in a number of places in the storytelling and in some of the directing and the editing. That moment between her and her mom, I'm like, man, I'm getting choked up right now. Like this, great. There are some really good ideas here, just not all of them were executed that well. And again, for Alcock Cox too, this is her first role.
Yeah.
I mean, and granted, she started it in Hawkeye, but she is fantastic, and I hope we get to see more of her. I agree, the Kingpin stuff didn't make sense. It was almost like Kingpin shouldn't have been in this show. Maybe in episode 1, but he really shouldn't have been the thread. I mean, I feel like you could have had a better antagonist that would have tied in with her story, with what she was trying to do. Like she's literally a wounded bird going back to the nest, trying to recover. I feel like there was just a better way to do it. The majority of the cast I really liked. I always love seeing Graham Greene. I got Cody Lightning as Biscuits. I had a real hard time with.
Wow.
I did not think he was funny. I felt he was pushing it so hard that it got to be in a sequence that, again, I mean, I get the, you know, her hopping on the train. It's like, what are we doing? In that sequence, I feel like if you had a more skilled comedic actor, I think that could have been a more exciting sequence. But ultimately, it kind of left me wanting. And the lacrosse sequence, again, that was, for me, that was one of those sequences. I'm like, there was a better way to do this, to really get in there and see what a rough game this was.
Oh, you mean the 13th century stuff, the stickball stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
That sequence really kind of left me wanting. I'm like, I feel like there was an opportunity here to really get in and make this a little more exciting, but everything was just so far back, and just a lot of the action, with the exception of in the first scene, with the first action sequence that we see Echo in with Daredevil. I thought a lot of the action was very, very static. But again, Alcock Cox is fantastic.
Yeah, I liked it. I liked it much more than Secret Invasion, for sure.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. I like Alcock Cox, certainly. Shannon, I echo. I loved her in the role. I totally believed her when she's having the interactions with Kingpin. And Michael, I think you're absolutely right. It seems way out of, but you know, the Kingpin does that weird shit in the comics. It just feels weird to see it in a TV or a theatrical format because of the rules of TV and theatrical formats that are different. So I totally understand that. But I thought her performances there were great, back and forth with Vince. She held her own with one of the greatest actors we've ever had in Vincent D'Onofrio, for sure, who I think really came into his own much more as Kingpin in this show than he does in the Hawkeye show, which I liked seeing. And of course, in Daredevil, he's great in Daredevil. So we saw shades of that hopefully we're going to see in Born Again. But I loved the Native American stuff. That all really worked for me. We're seeing more and more content with Dark Winds, with Reservation Dogs, with certainly Killers of the Flower Moon. There's much more Native American content, much more Native American actors. We're seeing these incredibly talented people who have just been waiting for opportunities to show what they can do. And I thought a lot of them really worked in the show, especially Tantu Cardinal, as you said earlier, Shannon, the connection that she has with her, I thought worked really well as well. The Devery Jacobs, though, thing is the thing that's confusing to me, because you build her up as a big deal in the first episode, and then she only pops in certain moments. You don't have that. You have that kind of, when they're tied up, that kind of, oh, where were you? Why didn't you? But Bonnie should have been a bigger part of this show. And I think, I don't know if it was Michael or Shannon who said that, if we had removed Kingpin and maybe had a Kingpin lieutenant or captain who was coming after her, much better than that Welsh guy from Perry Mason, who I thought was comically stupid in the show. And I loved him in Perry Mason. I thought he was comically stupid in this show. If you had someone a bit more chilling, a bit more of a villain there, who is trying to maybe vie for control of King, or somehow in some way sees Kingpin damaged and might make his move, sees that Lequa Cox's Echo is trying to make the move as well, and then you have a battle in Tamaha, that makes sense to me. But Mike, you're right. Trying to launch a bid to take over the New York Empire from Tamaha, Oklahoma, doesn't make any motherfucking sense. So I thought if they just pushed the Kingpin stuff aside and made it about a woman who is trying to find her voice in the world, reconnecting with the female ancestors of her past, so she can move away from the grooming of the male negative influences in her life, and her father taking her into Kingpin's world, and the Kingpin teaching her to be enforcer. I think that would have been a much more powerful story, but it seems like they didn't 100% get there in either one of the arenas that they were going for, but I did like it. Michael, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, it kind of feels like it just like when you're working on a story like this, you kind of ask, why do you do something?
Mm-hmm.
And the fact of the matter is, her wanting to be the Queen Pin and sticking into Wilson Fisk is unnecessary, because if you took that out entirely, as soon as Wilson Fisk is better from this gunshot that didn't kill him at point blank range, but is like, what's he gonna do?
Yeah.
He would have gone after Maya regardless. His going after Maya had more to do with, I need you. They put it in the first episode is a mess of editing. First of all, like the fact that they had to take so much of Hawkeye and stick it in there to sort of like make it make sense was all over the place. But you had the Charlie Cox cameo that people were excited about, and you showed that Echo held her own against Daredevil. And then you have Wilson Fisk say, you held your own better than anybody else. So Wilson Fisk wanting Maya back under the fold, despite the fact that she shot him, or going after her for revenge, are both perfectly good reasons. So to your point, her going back to Tomahawk because she had literally nowhere else to go, just to heal and lick her wounds, and then Kingpin going, I'm going to find you, and hey, guess what? Checking out where you came from is the whole Queen Pin thing was unnecessary. Agreed. And all the other stuff was more interesting. And the Bonnie thing is the same thing. It's like, it just feels like the story they wanted to tell, it was her and her grandma.
Mm-hmm.
It was her and Chula. And to your point, I also think that Tantu Cardinal is like the MVP of the show. I thought she was so 100%. Fucking good.
100%.
And so it does seem, it makes sense that like they set up this Bonnie thing, but you're like, Bonnie's cool, but she doesn't have a lot to do. Yeah. And this whole show is about Echo and her grandmother and her ancestors. And that is a straight line. So you sort of, when you're writing something, you want to take away everything that's unnecessary. You keep just like chipping away at it until you get to the core of it. And her grandma was the core of it. And when they leaned into that, to Shannon's point, the scene with Echo and her grandmother, great. The scene with Echo and her mom, great. The concept, Shannon's not wrong about some of the way it was shot, but the concept of seeing this stickball tournament and seeing this person who was tied to Chafa, and seeing the light bringers or whatever the indigenous sheriff were, and seeing that woman, and seeing Chafa and these Native Americans, and seeing this Native American kind of mythology come to life. All of that stuff was great.
Yeah.
And had the show really leaned into that even more and kind of cut away some of the silliness of the plot, I think it would have been maybe one of their best shows to date. As it is, I think you're right. Like, we can talk about the fact that some of this was silly and it didn't work, but from a character standpoint, I did leave Echo way more satisfied than I left Secret Invasion.
Yeah. And the I think the thing you hit on as you were talking, Mike, that actually kind of made it clear to me too as I was listening to you is, if they had made it about healing this trauma between the both of them, the grandmother and who had lost her daughter and the woman who had lost her mom, and that was the connective tissue, and that maybe both of them have been out of sorts since this loss for so many years, and it's healing that wound, which would have still echoed through all the female ancestors of her past, all the way to the first Choctaw, which I thought was a beautifully well shot sequence, and the sequence with the light horsewomen or light horsemen who she ends up, her ancestor ends up saving them. I thought all of that was great. If we had focused on that and kind of stripped everything away and made it that Kingpin was coming after her and she is finding her strength and her power through her people, so that there's now an army of her people against Kingpin, that would have been an awesome ending. So that when you see Kingpin, well, we see, but I don't know if Kingpin sees the 5 ancestors standing with her as they go after him, then there's a real power in that finale. So that when she channels the energy, which I don't know, does that make her a mutant? Not, I don't know. You're like, oh fuck, here we go, as opposed to being like, oh, okay, we're going that route. Okay, well, I like the story so far in terms of the Native American stuff. Okay, let's see what more we can do with this and what have you. Because I don't know where we end up with Kingpin at the end. Has he faced his trauma? Is he going to be a better person, or is he more damaged? I don't know.
No. But to that point, I did want to bring that up because this is another thing that they did that, again, I think was really smart. And I think could have been a little clearer, given the point that you just said, like, which is, it's a little unclear, which is this show is also about Echo. I mean, Maya. Sorry, I was like, what's her? It's about Maya letting go of the anger that she's carried her whole life.
Yeah.
So she is angry about her mom dying. She's angry about her dad dying. She kills Kingpin because she's so mad. She's just got all of this anger. And ultimately, she learns to let go of the anger and find something more valuable. And then because she has the healing gifts that her mother has within her, when she does go into Fisk's head at the end, she is kind of saying, let go of this. Like, you are living in this anger of this moment, you let this thing, I mean, again, just kind of childhood trauma and therapy, like you're letting this moment from your childhood define everything about you, let it go. And he refuses to let it go. So you see her kind of like, even though she hates Fisk and Fisk is her enemy and Fisk had her dad killed, she tries to like help him heal and he refuses. And I think that was a really great moment that maybe could have been, again, I think they did the moment well. It gets into, there's so many other things going on. It's like, pull back everything else and tell like a super streamlined story, because I think that worked pretty well, that she learned to move past. And also there was something, like that Fisk fed on her pain.
Yes, right.
Fisk kind of said, let me use your pain to turn you into the weapon that I want. Yeah. Whereas her mom and her grandmother and the people that are her real family were like, let go of this pain and become more. And I think that is a great story that got a little lost in some of the other stuff that was going on. Yeah,
Shannon, do you think we should have had more with her dad, with Zan McClaren? Like, let's see her as a teenager. Let's see her like discover her father's world. And then, I mean, we see the scene where she comes up and kicks the guy after Kingpin has beat the dude up. And we get, okay, so she has that instinct. But what about her father? Why did her father bring her into this world? Why did her father let her go walk into this world? Why did her father let her become this kind of murderous assassin or whatever? Like, why did all of this happen in her world? I wanted to, I don't know about you, but I wanted to see more, so that when we get to the Kingpin situation, we understand that she has confronted her pain and she has to heal from her pain and trying to heal Kingpin. And in essence, stripping that all away, it makes sense. Kind of it's almost like an advertisement for mental health, going to therapy, because all of this, I mean, in that scene, I was looking at myself in that scene, like, okay, how much of my pain from my past still drives me today? Because you see Kingpin reject it because he still needs it. He needs it in his mind, because if he lets it go, he doesn't know who he's going to be. Is he going to be successful? Is he still going to be the Kingpin of crime if he lets go of that anger? So did you think maybe seeing more of that journey for Alekwa as the character, or sorry, as Maya as the character, would have made the impact of the ending even more stronger?
Yeah. I mean, Zan McClaren is a terrific performer.
Please watch Dark Winds, guys. There's 2 seasons of it. He is the lead. He's incredible in that series. Yeah.
He's a great performer, and I think you could have fleshed him out. I think you could have fleshed his relationship and younger Echo out a little bit more, and you could have fleshed a little bit more out with him and Kingpin, like why exactly Fisk wanted him out of the way. Right. That's what the whole thing just had this feeling of not being complete. Yeah. And I think 5 episodes is something they've never done before. And I heard that, there were rumors it was 8, then it was 6, then it was 5. So I don't know what happened during the writing, during the production process, if that is true. And maybe the intention was always for it to be 5. We don't know. But it just seemed like there are just some gaps that, had they been filled in with some good stuff, it would have helped. It would have helped that ending a little bit more.
Yeah.
So I have a feeling, and again, I don't know, and they're not going to tell us, but when you see a show like this, that when you hear it was 8 episodes and then it was 6 episodes, then it's 5 episodes, and then they drop it all at once, and then particularly for me, when you watch the first episode, like a lot of the Echo as a little girl or Maya as a little girl, the Maya fight with Daredevil, that could have been done. Like, you could have opened the episode with Maya on a bike heading to Tamaha and her remembering things. But the fact that they sort of did this, let's do a chronological and let's drop in these scenes from Hawkeye and then let's put this here, but then we're going to have this Daredevil fight, but then we're going to show the scene from Hawkeye. It just felt like really choppy. And even the Bonnie stuff, the fact that we're all sitting here, we're like, well, they made a big deal about Bonnie, but then Bonnie was kind of there, but then it's really about her grandma. That all speaks to, there's a lot that was cut out that somebody deemed was not good. Maybe they were right, maybe they were wrong, but somebody at some point was like I'm sure that the creators of the show, when they hear people saying, yeah, the Bonnie, what happened with Bonnie? They're like, yeah, there was all this Bonnie stuff, man. We had all of it. Either they felt that it wasn't good or it didn't fit or stuff. Like, this definitely feels like a show where they had a bunch of stuff and they're like, fuck, this isn't working. And what we saw was a whole lot of this being built in the editing bay.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what do you guys think about we talked about how she goes, we see these scenes here from her ancestors' past. There is this blue circle thing that is very reminiscent of what we got with Kahori in the What If episode. So, are they trying to connect all this up to a Native American world that is influenced by the Tesseract in some way? Or what do you think about this? Am I insane for making that connection?
I don't think you're insane for making that connection because they're so close to each other. We literally just got the What If episodes, and the Kahori episode is a standout that really was so great. I think it sort of lessens the impact of what they were trying to do here,
100%.
Tying it to the Tesseract.
I agree. Yeah.
I think like going, oh, well, the Choctaw people had this power because of the Tesseract. I don't even want to get into that. I love that we see this very sort of weird opening with these people that look like they're made of bark, and then they become the first people of the Choctaw race. And that power is just inherent in them. This is the power of them as the indigenous people and the Choctaw tribe. I don't want to sci-fi it up or make it all tied to Infinity Stones. I think just being on the face of it, this is the power of who Maya is because of her people as an indigenous person is great. Full stop, period. Don't tie it to anything else.
Yeah. And their illuminated palms were not blue.
That's true.
They were kind of like an orangish yellow color. So that tells me that's a separation from what we saw in What If.
Well, let's hit on something else that Michael brought here, guys. And Shannon, I'll go to you first on this. I mean, they had to still have the Daredevil cameo. They had to still kind of connect things up. Do you think it was like, this is what unfortunately can be what bogs down some of these shows now, is that they have to also announce other shows. They have to tie into other things. They have to be launching pads for other shows. Because the fight sequence was great, I thought, in my opinion, but in the end, we didn't see him again. And so it just seemed odd to just have him there for one fight and then roll on out of there. And then we're going to see them down the road in Daredevil Born Again. Did you like the call outs to the overall MCU in the show, or do you think it was a bit of a detriment?
I mean, I thought that fight scene was great. I was reading some critique online. It's like, oh, you can see they're telegraphing the punches, and you can see they're missing. It's like, well, yeah, like that happens.
Wait till you watch pro wrestling, guys. Anyway, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say watch Rocky 3.
Watch Luke kick that guy on the barge, please.
But the scene itself, I'm like, oh man, this is really awesome, and getting to see Charlie Cox do Daredevil again. Did you need Daredevil in that? No, absolutely that like you could have had her beating up any number of bad guys, and the result is still the same. The fact that Kingpin said, "Hey, you've done better than any of my other guys," like none of that affected the outcome. So you do get the sense like they have Charlie Cox in the stable. They want to use him. I get why they do it, but did they need him? No.
Yeah. Michael.
It's a shame because I don't think that this suffers from like the Wakanda Forever issue.
Yeah.
Where like there was so much stuffed in there that you were like, I don't think we needed all of that, guys. Pull back a little bit. The fight scene was great. It makes sense that he would have shown up. It all worked, but then it didn't, to Shannon's point, it didn't really mean anything. Whereas again, if you were like, Kingpin turns Maya into a weapon. She fights Daredevil, proving that she is a very valuable weapon. She shoots Kingpin. She goes to heal. Kingpin shows up and says, you can't leave. You're my most valuable weapon.
Yeah.
Then the fight makes sense because it sort of drives Kingpin's, but because so many other things were happening. So I liked the scene and I think they could have used it better. Given the way it all ended up, it did feel kind of extraneous and kind of like they were just doing it for the fans. And it almost would have been better to not have him in there. But there's a world where that scene could have made a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Is it improved if we get like we got the tag with Fisk contemplating running for mayor?
Yeah, I was just going to ask about that.
Is an additional tag with us seeing Charlie Cox and Echo show up saying, "Hey, you and I should have a conversation." Does that improve it at all?
No. Yeah. And then they put on all the other Netflix shows and watch them at the same time. Oh, these are canon now. These are canon now.
No, I think
they're all having shawarma. Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, Daredevil.
Can you imagine how, like, if like Echo like rolled her bike back in and then like a door opened and it was just like Luke Cage and the Punisher and Jessica Jones and Matt Murdock and they were like, shawarma? And we'd all be like, fuck you.
Where's Iron Fist?
I was gonna say, is there an empty seat where Iron Fist is supposed to be sitting there? Like, hey, we have a chair open.
He's late.
That was an intentional omission. No, like, look, I think seeing I love Charlie Cox's Daredevil. The more that I see of him, the better. And it was a great scene. Like, there was a thrill to watching it, but I think it did suffer from. It almost feels like what was originally intended for that, or where it was also like there was just a lot that felt like there was banned. And I do like, as I'm critiquing the kind of plot line of the Fisk and she wants to be the Queen Pin, it really does feel like there's a lot of band-aids being put over stuff to fix other things.
Yeah.
But there really is a good story. And to your point about Secret Invasion, look, we're going to critique all these shows. We're going to take all these shows seriously and break them down and talk about what worked and what didn't work. And I think as opposed to other podcasts, we're not going to be like, this was fucking garbage, blah, blah, blah. Like there's pros and cons to a lot of these things. And I think the big pro here, in addition to like some amazing performances and really leaning on the indigenous culture in a way that worked for the character, it didn't feel forced. It didn't feel like they were shoving anything down our throats. Like, this was a really great reimagining of why Echo is named Echo. Yeah. Echo in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I'm in for more of her. Yeah. She's great. Like, watching her and Daredevil and anybody else kind of be those street level heroes of the MCU, like, she's awesome. So I'm 100% on board for more of her. I like where she ended up at the end of this journey. I just think the journey could have been a little bit better.
I think there's a darker, grittier story to tell here. And if this is on HBO Max or Max, we get that darker story. Ironically, under the Warner Brothers auspices, we get that darker story. We get like Kingpin waking up, realizing it was Maya, marshaling his people together, mapping this out, finding her, figuring this all out. We get Maya coming home to Tamaha and really dealing with the trauma of what happened there, confronting the stuff about her father, confronting the stuff about her mom, about her grandmom. We get all that. We have the comedy relief of Biscuits and Graham Greene, who I think were great comedic relief, although I know Shannon's not a Biscuits fan, were nice changes of pace in the situation. And we also get a really deep exploration of this Choctaw heritage and get really deeper into it and see the connections, so that we lead to this incredibly awesome, balls out, R-rated finale that they pitched us as a TV MA show. And unfortunately, we didn't get that here. But what we did get, in my opinion, I think was enough to enjoy, was enough to see that there's possibilities for this character and possibilities for the Spotlight banner. But I don't know how much Disney will be willing to dive into the grittier aspects
Hold
of
on.
things. And we'll see.
Wait a minute. Look, their TVMA thing, I mean, at this point, I think their TVMA thing was a marketing ploy. Like, there was just, like, it wasn't it wasn't TVMA, but they were like, look, we're gonna lean into this. I think that Born Again is probably gonna be a lot darker and a lot more violent. I think they ended up with what they had for Echo, and they were like, what are we gonna market this? And they went for the TVMA. I don't think that Disney allows Echo to be rated TVMA, but then says, don't really make it TVMA. I don't think that this is a Disney being like, ooh, let's call it TVMA, but not really go for it. Like, this whole concept, again, it's the same as with Andor and everything else.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
You can't keep saying that Disney doesn't want to go dark.
I can if their point of view of dark is not the same as darker people's point of view of dark. Their TVMA is way softer than I bet the Penguin is going to be on Max.
Sure, but like, I don't think that Disney is preventing them. I think they just had this show and they're like, let's call it TVMA. I don't think that Disney is like, don't make Marvel too violent. Like, you have a Spotlight banner that you literally are saying, this is our darker, more violent thing, so that you can do that. Like, this is not... There's this thing that keeps happening where when we don't like something and we think it wasn't the gritty thing we wanted, we're like, the Disney executive said that. I just don't think that's true. I just think this wasn't as good as it could be.
Those words did not come out of my mouth. Those words did not come out of my mouth. I just said there's a better version down the road under the Warner Brothers auspices, because I've seen this on Max, where there's a grittier approach to this. Okay. In no way did I say the Disney executives went in there and said, you better tone this down. I didn't say that. It's just that their approach is a certain approach, and not everyone's going to have the same approach. And for my taste, the Warner Brothers approach when it comes to these kinds of stories are the approach I prefer more than the Disney approach, with Andor being the anomaly. So that's my point of view on it, because we're not all going to see things the same way. So your dark is not my dark. Shannon's dark is not my dark or Vogel's dark. And vice versa. And people watching us have different versions of what dark is. And so that's the thing at the end of the day.
Okay.
Shannon?
No, I was just thinking of the acronym for Disney Plus. TVMA means TV mutually appropriate.
TV slightly dark.
TVM.
You don't have to see it as a negative, Michael. It's just saying that Disney sees dark.
It's not that it's a negative or a positive. I just think you are placing what ultimately is there is a creator, like, this show just didn't really deliver on what it promised it was going to deliver, which is fine. Like, had it been amazing, like, and by the way, I'm not purporting that I think it needed to be super, super violent. I think the problems with it have nothing to do with the darkness level, and I think they definitely delved into the indigenous stuff and the Choctaw stuff. I think that's where they were most successful. So I'm not saying that it needs to be violent. I'm just saying they went for it with the marketing, going the darkest.
They did,
and it wasn't that. So I think that's either a mistake on their part, or it was a calculated, this is going to get people to watch it opening weekend. But I don't think that Disney is actually... as an overall vibe, I don't think that they are telling people at Lucasfilm or Marvel or anybody that they can't get dark and gritty. I think that they're more than happy for these things to be dark and gritty, particularly under the Spotlight banner. But we'll see. We'll see when Born Again comes out.
Maybe they're only picking creators that they know aren't going to go too dark, though. That's also kind of a way to kind of do that without overtly doing that in their approach. But you're right. We'll see how Born Again, because if Born Again comes out and it's slightly, for lack of a better term, homogenized, I mean like softer in its approach, I think people are going to have real issues with that. So we will see. Shannon, any final words on this? I think we've all said, right, our final words on this, Shannon. Anything we missed or you want to bring up?
Well, on Instagram, I think it's on Marvel's page. It's definitely on Sarah Finn's page. Sarah Finn is the casting director for Marvel. They have the moment where they're on a Zoom and Alcock Cox is told that she is getting the role. And it is if you have time, if you're on Instagram, go check out that video, because again, for someone who had never done this before, she's incredible. And I hope we get to see her again soon.
Yeah, we all three of us may have differing opinions about the series, but I think all three of us agree that Allegra Cox should continue as Maya Lopez and Echo and see more from her in the
Absolutely.
MCU for sure. Yeah, for sure. All right, we got some Streamlabs of super chats. Shall we get into them here as we wrap up the show, gentlemen? Let's do it. All right, Gabriel Fuentes says, I would love for Meg to get the role of Meg Donnelly and talking about Supergirl. I really think she could be a movie star, but I think he's going to pick Millie because she already has a relationship with WB through House of the Dragon. All three are great choices, though. That's a great point, Gabriel. I'm sure Millie has a little bit of a leg up, possibly, with the relationship. But gentlemen?
A dragon leg up.
I don't know, though. I could see...
Okay.
Again, to Shannon's point, like, I mean, I could see with Supergirl particularly them going with a lesser known actress if they really, really liked Meg. Like, I could see that this is the kind of role that you build a star out of, as opposed to bringing someone in who's already recognizable. But we'll see.
Yeah. Okay. Roach Smith says, any chance we could get a For All Mankind season review from Michael and Shannon? Maybe as a Geek Bite? John, you need to start this show. I'd be more than happy to let these two gentlemen do a review of For All Mankind and put it up as the Geek Bite if they're up for it.
Yeah, one more episode.
Gotta watch today's season finale. But then I would definitely, I love talking about For All Mankind. I was on a date last night and I spent way more time than I should have explaining why For All Mankind was a great show. So I don't know that bodes well for a second date, but I sure enjoyed talking about it.
Captain Kirk just donating. Thank you, Captain Kirk.
Thank you, Captain.
Francisco Lopez has two of them this year. He says, Echo is okay, but at the end I was like, what was the purpose of the show for the rest of the MCU? And I feel like that to other MCU series like Agatha, Wonder Man, and Ironheart, and even the Blade movie. I just hope we are watching these shows and movies for some reason. Well, why does it have to be beyond being entertained? Like, yeah, I guess we want to connect it up, and they pitched them a connected universe, obviously, but really, first and foremost, you just want to be entertained. And so I was entertained, maybe not 100%, but I certainly was entertained with Echo much more than I was with Secret Invasion. But gentlemen, what do you think? Do you feel that way too? Like, what's the point of this show or these things coming up?
We were conditioned with the Marvel Cinematic Universe as this is all building to something.
True.
So that as an audience, that's what we're going in with. Those are our expectations. And I think now, because they do have, so many characters and so many titles, it's becoming more like the comics where you are going to have this individual story here that doesn't necessarily connect to this individual story over here. Like they still want to build to that big thing, but we are getting more of those individual adventures. So yeah, I mean, I agree. Like this ultimately didn't lead to anything other than Echo's inclusion in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It may and Wilson Fisk running for mayor. I mean, it's kind of going into Daredevil.
Yeah, look, Marvel can't have their cake. You can't have it both ways, Marvel. John's right. Yes, sometimes a movie or a TV show can just be good because you love the movie or TV show, but that's not what Marvel has pitched us.
That's true.
And that's not what Marvel is saying that they are going to do. It's not like Marvel is all of a sudden like, hey, we're not doing any big connected story. We're just telling good stories. Like they are driving us to Secret War.
True. And
they have told us that the 10 rings are tied to an alien symbol and there's apparently a celestial in the ocean. And, you can't say we're building to some bigger thing and then also say, oh, but we're just doing some individual stories. So I think that it is very fair to say that at this point with Marvel, it does not feel like we're going anywhere and we're kind of all over the place. And I think that's hopefully what they're trying to fix right now.
Yeah, that's a good point. Don't show me black smoke and a polar bear and it's just about people reconnecting. Captain Kirk says, do you guys think James Gunn's DCU will mirror a live action Bruce Timm Batman the Animated Series aesthetic for his universe?
No.
Oh, yeah, right.
I don't think that dark Bruce Timm Batman universe is James Gunn's vibe. And again, these individual movies are also going to have the vibes of their individual directors and creative teams. But overall, Batman the Animated Series, at least for the time when it came out, was pretty dark for the world of animation that we were in at the time. And I don't think that that's generally James Gunn's tone or aesthetic.
Yeah. Shannon?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at James Gunn's previous work, and even though Superman is not, at least tonally, not really like anything he's done before, I think he's a bright guy, colorful guy. So I think even though the animated series aesthetic is awesome, I don't think it's necessarily going to translate to what James Gunn is doing.
Yeah, I don't disagree. RK says, "What are y'all's thoughts on a The Craft reboot with Halle Bailey, Iman Vellani, Jenna Ortega, and Rachel Zegler?" Well,
is that happening?
No, he's just asking. I think.
I was like that. I'll watch it.
I mean, I don't think that's happening necessarily, but I think that would be interesting to see all four of them be a part of that. Good luck with trying to get all four of them.
What a cast!
Yeah.
I think two of them would be difficult to get. I think the other two would be easier to get.
Yeah, because there was a Craft Legacy film that came out in 2020, which starred possibly future Oscar nominee Kaylee Spaney there in that as well. So yeah, these getting these four would be something. You'd have the budget would have to be quite big to get those four. Gabriel Fuentes says, "Loved Echo, not perfect but good enough first season." Oh brother, I love you think that there's going to be a second one. They have room for improvement. Really hoping for a second season. Already on a rewatch. Alekwa Cox is phenomenal. Definitely a star in the making. Yeah, I think we all agree with that, but I don't know if a season 2 is in the making in any way, shape, or form. Gentlemen, your thoughts?
I mean, look, particularly because it does seem to me like this was a troubled production where they sort of really cut it down and built it in the editing bay. I don't think they're going to be anxious to dive into a season 2.
Yeah.
But I do think we've definitely not seen the last of Alekwa Cox's Echo.
Yeah. Jen,
yes. Hopefully what Vogel said. I think Echo is here to stay.
Fair point. Derek Johnson sent us 3 of these. They're all connected, so I'm just going to read them. Derek says, "Echo, I loved it. And MCU makes me care about characters that I never read the stories for. And this indigenous story, I got to say, no other networks or franchises are giving us these diverse range of stories and characters. This story and the emotion of it, I loved. This is what I want out of a badass woman character. No frills, no bullshit. Nobody telling me she's a badass. You can just feel she takes no shit by her stares, and she kicks ass. I love it. Love the show as always. Can't watch live today as I keep neglecting work and being lazy. LOL. Just wanted to say the soundtrack for Echo is the shit." Yeah, good to hear, Derek. And I should also add, I love the use of sign language in this show. I thought that was another positive thing about Echo, because they used both the standard sign language and the American Indian sign language versions of sign language. And I thought that was a really cool thing to be a part of the show. At the time when people are complaining about subtitles, I love that we can have something like sign language. It makes me want to learn it for sure, seeing other people using it in this way and seeing it work so well in a show like this. What do you guys think of Derek's thoughts overall?
I mean, to the sign language point you just made, Johnny, I mean, that has been something, even though we haven't seen a ton of Maya, that is something that has been consistent. Like when she spotted Clint's earpiece, hearing aid, saying, like, you don't need that. And then watching, like, I thought the design choice of when Wilson Fisk with the eyepiece, like having those digital arms sign for him, and how it made communication easier. But ultimately, that was, in Maya's estimation, that's not cool. Right. Like, you didn't care enough to learn how to do this properly. You're using a cheat. So I thought that was really, really cool.
Yeah, Mike.
Yeah, look, I mean, I agree with Derek that I think that Marvel's strength is creating characters that we like. And they've definitely done that with Echo. They just have other weaknesses that they need to sort of fill the gaps in.
Yeah. I mean, I came in not probably having read much of Echo in the comics and seeing her here in the show. And now it makes me want to read more of her stuff. Although she's different heritage-wise in her powers, but I would like to read more of it. So I think that the show certainly accomplished that. Let's see here. Jim Fan says, "Echo started off strong, but gradually felt like the series was chopped and condensed," as Michael has pointed out. "The finale was so disappointing. The supporting characters were blah, and this really didn't need to be TVMA, but Alekwa Cox still shines, and I want to see more of Echo." Okay. Any thoughts on that, guys? Are we good to move on to the
I mean, I disagree. I think some of the supporting characters weren't great, but I think some of the supporting characters were A++. And I don't know that I'm at the point where I was with Miss Marvel, where I'm like, I want to see all of these characters in the MCU. But I think for the roles that they played, I think they were really strong.
Yeah. Shannon?
Agreed.
Yeah. Hill Nellum says, "I finished Echo last night." What's up, Hill? It's always good to see you, brother. He said, "I was happy with the show, especially the Native American lore parts. As a self-contained story, I didn't have any complaints. I do think Alekwa Cox could be a star in the making. It makes me want to see more of her in the MCU. I think, all of us are on board with the last sentiments for sure. And we enjoyed the Native American parts. And there was more to explore with that. And so I'd like to see, as Michael said, maybe there's other episodes or other footage that they'd shot that could be interesting to explore. Anything you guys want to say on that?
Yeah, I thought the Choctaw elements were the strongest, strongest aspects of the story.
Yep.
And that powwow was beautifully shot. Jesus. Lindley, my significant other, she is half Native American, Madeira. She goes up to the powwow. Her mom is part of the powwow committee there up in Northern California. I have yet to go, and maybe it is time for me to go and experience that with her, because I want to see what that is like. And a lot of people were pointing out them having a taco truck at the powwow, which is something that is at some of those powwow. Fred Tastic said, "Hey, Geek Buddies, I really enjoyed Echo. I'm fluent in ASL, and when I sign, there are hesitations in speaking that I saw in the show. That's awesome. I understand why this is, but I would hate for it to be a reason why people would trash the show. Thanks, buddies." Oh, yeah. If anyone's trashing the show for the ASL, they can fuck all the way off. And I don't care what you think about that. I thought it was awesome to see that in the show. Gentlemen?
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Like, I loved the way that she communicated with each person was a little different. Everyone signed a little differently.
Yes.
Some people signed silently. Some people spoke along with their signing. And I thought that, again, that was a thing that made the show strong and stand out.
Yeah. It's Mike, your thoughts?
No, I totally agree. I thought it was great.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you go. That's all the Streamlabs and Super Chats. That's all the topics we had scheduled for ourselves for this special live episode of the Geek Buddies. Anything more you guys, gentlemen, want to bring up, or anything we missed, or any thoughts?
I think we hit it all. It was a packed morning for the Geek Buddies.
That's for sure. And we appreciate you all taking the time to hang out with us here. Over 300 of you watching us for a majority of this 2-hour show. So we appreciate you all madly. As we're wrapping up, please remember, the gentleman take care of this. Well, Shannon, take it away.
Yeah, if you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's @geek_buddies, on Instagram at @the_geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's @Shannon_McClung, on Instagram at Shannon the Geek Buddy. You want things light? You want things bright? Follow Mike Vogel at MKToon. You want things dark? Follow Johnny Rocha at The Rocha Says.
For sure.
Well, we had a great time with you guys this morning, and here's what you guys can do for us. Don't forget to smash that like button before you leave. Subscribe to Johnny's Outlaw Nation page. Check out all the amazing content he's got there. Leave your comments below if you're watching us later. What did you think of Supergirl, Echo, Mandalorian, Star Trek, Top Gun 3, Tom Cruise? Let us know below in the chat. If you're listening to us on a podcast, leave us some stars and comments so we go up in the rankings. And as always, the best thing you can do is retweet this video, post it on your social, send it to your friends, and tell them to hang out with your buddies, the Geek Buddies.
Yes, please do. Someone is saying that they sent a Streamlab through, and I didn't read it, but I just went through all the Streamlabs. I read them all. So either it didn't go through, or there was some communication issue maybe, because I've read all the Streamlabs and the Super Chats for you guys. And thank you very much for sending them in. We appreciate it madly. All right. Take care of yourselves. Be well. Have a great weekend, and come back and join us next week for another brand new episode of the
Geek
Buddies!
Hey!